Well, hi, and welcome to another installment of our morning devotional. I want to start today by making a confession to you. I don't know if you saw Pastor Mark's devotional yesterday morning, but it honestly made me jealous. I mean, he was all tucked in cozy by his fireplace, so I just wanted to try to keep even and do a devotion by my fireplace. So you make the call, who looks cozier? I mean, I'm in my familiar sweatshirt that you saw last week's devotional, and I'm in slippers as well. So, I mean, you be the judge. But I'm so glad to be with you this morning. And this morning, we're going to look at Psalm 5. This is an incredible psalm. I only want to take a couple minutes, but I believe it has a lot of hope for you and for me this morning. So let's look. Psalm 5. First 3 verses read like this. It says, "Listen to my words, Lord, consider my lament. Hear my cry for help, my King and my God, for to you I pray. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait expectantly." Now, this psalm was written by David, and he asks God for 3 things right off the bat. He says, Lord, listen to my words. He says, consider my lament. Consider, pay attention and heed what I'm asking you about the things that are grieving me. And last, hear my cry for help. So right off the bat, listen, consider, and hear. But who is he asking? He is asking his King and his God. Now, this was incredible. The God of Israel was seen as both king, ultimate ruler, and God, creator of the whole universe. And yet, that God had the time to listen and consider and hear the things that were on David's heart. And I hope you know that this morning, that God is King of all and Creator and Lord and God of the universe, and yet still has time to hear your laments and your cries for help. Well, the psalm goes on. It says, "For you are not a God who is pleased with wickedness. With you, evil people are not welcome." Now, this is amazing. What David is doing is describing God. He's describing the holiness of God. And now, in that time, there are lots of gods that people believed in. And to call a God holy was kind of circular. A God was holy because it was a God. But our God is holy for very different reasons. Before, it had nothing to do with the character of the God. See, the gods in that time were the worst. They were vindictive and mean and held grudges. And anytime evil was happening, you never knew if it was something you did or that God, the God that you might pray to, was out to get you. And here we see David describing a God who has the time to hear about the evil that David is facing, but also he's a God. It says evil people are not welcome. A better translation is that evil isn't welcome. Evil can't even be in God's presence for the briefest of moment. That's what that means. So David is able to approach this God with the confidence that that God pays attention to him and cares about him, that he's not like the other gods, he's not mean, vindictive, or holding out a grudge, or just messing with David. And that he knows that so much that the God that David prays to is the kind of God that evil can't even be around for a nanosecond. And friends, that's the same God that you and I pray to, the kind of God that cares about us and cannot be in the presence of evil even for a moment. Now, what's amazing is David, you might know David's story. David had some evil in him. He had some sin in him. And yet, he felt the confidence to go before God. What we are finding out is about how God is able to be holy and morally pure and yet wants to draw near to sinners like you and me. We'll pick up a couple verses later in verse 7. It says, "But I, by your great love, can come into your house. In reverence, I bow down towards your holy temple." No, it's amazing. Just a moment ago, we found out what can't be in God's presence for even the slightest moment evil. And yet you and I it says, come into God's house. This means to kind of take up residence. It means to be in God's presence for the long haul. We can come in, we can be around God, and we can worship him. We can say that God is the most important thing in our lives. This is incredible. Now, To bring our time to a close this morning, we'll look at the last two verses in Psalm 5, 11 and 12. And they read like this. It says, "But let all who take refuge in you be glad. Let them ever sing for joy. Spread your protection over them, that those who love your name may rejoice in you. And surely, Lord, you bless the righteous. You surround them with your favor as a shield." That word, take up refuge, it doesn't mean just be in God's presence for the briefest moment. It doesn't mean just to run to God just when trouble rises its ugly head. It means to be around God's presence and in God's presence for the long haul. It means maybe to go to God when trouble strikes, but then to stay there afterwards and feel comfortable and at ease and loved by the God who is not pleased and can't be pleased with evil and can't be around it. And he says, surely the Lord will bless the righteous and he will surround them with favor as a shield. So friends, this morning, I hope you heed the words and pay attention to the words of Psalm 5. That you have a God, the God of the universe, who loves you like crazy, who has time to listen and pay attention to the things that are affecting your life and the trouble you face. And that he is beckoning you to feel safe to be in his presence, not because he isn't holy and can't be around evil, but because he has decided to deal with evil on our behalf, so then that we could take our refuge in him. Maybe running to God just when trouble strikes, but to feel the comfort to stay there afterwards. Friends, I hope you know that God, the God that loves you and wants you to be in his presence now and always. Amen to that, and thanks so much for being with me.